Okay, here's some recent stunning archaeology that comes out of China. It's from a couple of years ago, but I was unaware of this. It apparently wasn't in any of the journals that I've looked through, but it talks about the ancient remains of 5,000-year-old giants discovered in China. So this is roughly 3000 BC or a little more, around the age of the pyramids and so on like that. And this is not too far from a few different pyramids that they have found. In fact, one of them is stone, although it's only like 35 foot tall or something, but it is smooth faced and looks very much like the one that they have found in Greece that looks just like it. And whenever they date that one, it seems to date to as old, if not older, than the Great Pyramid in Giza. And I've explained that to you also, along with a few other pyramids that have been found around the world and in Europe and on islands and where the Guanches live. And then there's a lot found in South America. And of course, this is up in China, so it's not too far from the people rolling around and down into the Americas. But this is very conspicuous, and there's this one thing about it which is very telling. Well, really, more than that, for it starts off with giants in China. Let's continue. Archaeologists in China have made stunning discoveries, finding graves bearing the ancient remains of giant people buried approximately 5,000 years ago. The bones uncovered during an excavation in Shandong province in East China reveal at least one male individual who would have reached 1.9 meters or 6 foot 3 inches. The other one said 6'4" in height, along with others measuring 1.8 meters or 5 foot 11 inches tall, making them giants in their time who would have towered over their Neolithic contemporaries. And we know how short of stature Chinese people are and stuff, but you can imagine back then, before they had created and gotten good agriculture and things along there, that they would have been even shorter in stature. And a lot of people are claiming they're under 5 foot at this time, but we're going to go into that again later in this same discussion. This is just based on the bone structure. The head of Shandong University School and Culture, Fang Hui, explained to China's state-run news agency Xinhua, if he was a living person, his height would certainly exceed 1.9 meters. And of course, they're going off bones, and the discs aren't there in your back and everything else, and this guy could be over 6'6" easily. In fact, one of the others say that it's over 6'6". But this also corresponds with these same Tarim Basin mummies that are over there, that are shown to be 6'6" inches tall, and tall blonde mummies that I've done quite a few videos on. And this, I mean, it's eroded and caked real bad, but it looks extremely Caucasoid. It doesn't have the eye orbits that would be common with someone of Chinese descent, nor its flat face. It has a prominent chin. There's a lot of things about this, other than just the height, that tells you that this is not what you would think of as a Chinese person. But even more conspicuous yet, and I'm kind of frustrated in doing it still at the same time, but you can see this big belt here, and it has these 3 dots that are on it, and it looks like some other drilled out spots and maybe missing the minerals that are on there. But does anybody remember, and I look through my stuff and I cannot find it. I've become frustrated as hell over it too, but does anybody remember whenever I did a Scythian barrel that they showed, and in that Scythian barrel there was a belt just like this? The only difference between this and that belt is that 1 or 2 of the dots were red, the rest were white, and they were insert into this little slate type thing, and they called it a belt and the whole 9 yards. Here we have the ring, and we have a hoop that's around the arm, and this looks very conspicuously like those other type of burials. So it seems modern men of the same region are significantly shorter, and many of these ancient forebears, even though men in China today would enjoy far better access to a range of healthy foods and live in an era when we know much, much more about nutrition. So that's showing you that back whenever they were extremely short and didn't have their nutrition going on, there's still these 6 foot 6 people that are living there that seem to have something to do with those Scythian type people that are over there and Proto-Indo-Europeans. And it is an Upart, and they keep repeating it. While we don't know for sure how tall the average height would have been in Shandong 5,000 years ago, well, we got a good idea. European males in the period were thought to only stood about 5 foot 5 inches, so it's clear these giants were definitely unusual tall for their time. And when we look into the idea of what ended up becoming the Vikings and these people over there that are taller in average, you can see the difference. And of course we know Cro-Magnon man that led into all of this was much, much taller. And they say, well, that was whenever he was a hunter-gatherer, and then he ended up getting smaller whenever he developed into the modern Caucasian, which is a little bit odd, but there seems to have been other causes for that. But what's odd about Cro-Magnon man is that his skull is shown to be non-prognostic. So he doesn't have his jaw sticking out real bad like you would see on somebody who was supposedly still a hunter-gatherer. And we'll get into that in a few videos coming up. While we don't know for sure how tall they were, he says, 5 foot 5 for Europeans at that time, but then they talk about giants and the Norse giants and things, and you know, everybody famously knows about the giant of Gath in the Bible. And whenever we really look into the ancient stories of it, the very first tellings in Septuagint and so on, Goliath is only 6'9". I had a friend that was 6'9", but he didn't have that pituitary problem. He's just a gigantic man, and I knew that I was looking at a giant. He literally, me being over 200 pounds, he could, if I put my arms stiff up against me, he could just pick me up, set me down. It's just boom. And the guy was so much taller than me. Yeah, let's get a couple of weapons and start going after it. This is the idea of giants back in the day, and how intimidating and overbearing they were. The strangeness of that is it seems those mythologies were helped spurned and carried on by the giants themselves at a later date. So it's kind of a funny thing whenever they show up, they talk about fairies and all these things, and it blends in. It's kind of an oddity here. But so the Fangs team has been conducting the dig in Yahala village in Zhanghui district, Jinan city, since last year, and have so far excavated the ruins of 205 graves and 20 sacrificial pits along 104 houses. So they've all been built on top of this or whatever, an ancient burial ground. As to what these ancient individuals, such impressive stature, the researchers think that people of what's called Longshan culture, named after Mount Longshan in Zhanghui, had good food to thank for their healthy frames. And I have a stinking suspicion of part of the place that the Scythians helped to kick in the Chinese people's agriculture and bring them to a different light. For we have seen the Scythians have the yin-yang symbol and all these type of things on their ancient stuff, the swastika and other important symbology that's been carried all the way until just recently, and then now given a totally bad rep. Already agriculture at the time, people had diverse and rich food resources, and thus their physique changed. And that's them trying to apologize for this look. For in reality, already agriculture at that time, but they were short at that time. So what? Well, people had diverse, rich food resources, and thus their physique changed. Are we seeing 6'6" tall Chinese people nowadays? Are we seeing 6 foot tall Chinese people these days? And wouldn't that be quite rare? And it is. And sure, there's the basketball player and everything, Ming, and so on, but that's something different, isn't it? And I wonder where he gets that gene from, perhaps. No one wants to look into all of that, and it's because to them they have to save face. It's somewhat embarrassing, but whenever they sent out those Chinese mummies and the beauty of Lulan and all that stuff, after it got investigated and started finding out what was going on, they decided that it was no longer going to go on exhibit. Where it seemed like a fairly popular exhibit, people were seeing that these Scythians were all the way over there in this Tarim Basin. Blonde-haired people, tartan fabrics, real nice looking, boots and everything. They had some advanced shit going on right there. So this is not a small excavation at all. You want to say that they found one guy, or they found this and they found that, but it's well over 100. That says somewhere in here, I believe, or was it the other article? Another clue to the giants' proportion lies in their ancient surroundings. The tallest men were found in larger tombs, suggesting that they may have been important individuals of high status, giving them better access to good food and comfortable existence, or they may have brought that with them. The layout of the ruins houses found in the dig also indicates that things like separate bedrooms and kitchens, decidedly comfortable conveniences for a village dating back to around 5 millennia, so 3000 BC, and advanced looking little house type things that mimic maybe some of those old wooden houses that the Scythians had, starting it off somewhat. The craw, the very top or arch of all these old ancient Scythians would be come up and go together, and it looks like it was made from boats, but you can find that twisted in, pointed end on a lot of Oriental architecture, and that is warped boards done for a reason. Perhaps it started from one thing and developed into another. Let's continue. The layout of the ruins of the houses found in the dig also indicates things like separate bedrooms and kitchens, decidedly comfortable conveniences. That the hypothesis is that these people didn't have much to complain about. They had it going on. In addition to the human remains and building foundation, archaeologists uncovered pig bones and teeth, suggesting the villagers farmed the animals, along with a range of colorful pottery and jade objects. I'd like to see all of those. Some of the skeletons and cultural artifacts bear the marks of physical damage, which may have been intentionally inflicted after the burials, which the team thinks could have been politically motivated in some kind of local power struggle. And doesn't that sound convenient? The Great Wall of China faces the wrong way. Some of these are conspicuous as hell on the exact shape of this base. And even these, it doesn't look necessarily what everybody says is Oriental, or a blend between the two of an idea. Variation on a theme. It's worth bearing in mind that these early findings are only preliminary for now and haven't yet been peer reviewed by other scientists. But what perhaps most exciting about the finding is just how much left there is to discover about these ancient peoples and their way of life. Those amazing Proto-Indo-Europeans. And it looks like they ought to do a genetic study onto them and everything else, and let's just see if we can't get some DNA out of them too. So far, just 2,000 square meters of the Yahala site has been excavated, so it's a large area. Only a minute fraction of the overall square kilometer intended to be dug up investigated. So they're saying it appears like it goes more than a square kilometer of this village, that these people are all real tall and different looking, and they have that weird belt. And that weird belt, man, I wish I could find that video, guys. I spent the morning going back through my 1,300, 1,500 videos trying to find it, and I thought I used it as its picture, to where you see bones in a belt, and it's really a close-up on the belt. I thought I used that as its picture, but maybe I didn't. So I started doing all the Scythian videos and everything, and I'm like, God, it's in here. It's not the one that was the Hills of the Princes that they had, but there was one that I was doing right during that time, and it had this odd belt, and I mention it, and there's another belt that looks like that, if I'm not mistaken, more over in a Middle Eastern standpoint too, that they had found. And, or is that it? Regardless, rather disappointed that I can't find exactly it, but nobody knows what exact secrets Lahala will continue to turn up, but there's a good chance we'll find out more. Explain now these ancient giants grew so impressively tall, and even more besides. Let's see if this will play. 5,000-year giants. There's the burial right there that they're using as a show burial, pretty much. But when you look at this, that man right there is under 5 foot tall. And he's looking down at a 6'6" tall. That's not the one with the belt, so that's another one. That's another one. It's another. They're still calling it Longshan culture. Hooped jugs, looks Triptilian. Ortanian ware. I'm sure a better archaeologist than me could probably look at that skull or a few of these guys and give you a good indication of what was going on and whether or not these people may be somewhat mixed or if that is their regular look. Anyhow, what struck me about the whole thing, other than the pottery, the fact that they're giants and way out of place in a time that these people were nowhere near that height, and it's one of the biggest sore thumbs sticking out like boing. But that plate that's on his belt, I remember making a joke in my video that here what we're talking about is Scythians, and they're raising horses, and he's got this big cowboy belt buckle, and it's like cowboys, belt buckles. They wear these funny hats. They ride across the range, da-da-da, make it happen, something like that, you know. So big belt buckle and riding horses, and some joke that was on there. If y'all have been watching all my videos, you'll remember it. Maybe you can help me track it down. I might even do a whole different one where I can just show back and forth this and that other one, and this and that other one. And you say, well, it's not exact. This one's got a no. We're not going to try to pull that. Two swords aren't exactly the same, and we know they came from the same people. Let's stop that. Also, 6'6" tall people don't come from ancient Chinese. Anyhow, guys, like, share, and subscribe, and enjoy. And I'm going to go farther into this because they're peer reviewing the paper, and there should be something definitely about this entire area and what they've come to know, and perhaps there's genetics. Peace.